Hello, students. Welcome to Sociology again. It's great to have you in the course. Um, this is just a simple screen capture type lecture. I hope to be doing more of these throughout the class as I work on the lessons, and I'm continually updating them. So let's jump right in. We're going to talk about what is sociology and some terms that we need to come to grips with right at the beginning, and get into our first lesson and assignment. So, what is sociology? Sociology is the systematic study of people living in groups. Okay, when we say systematic, that means it has a recipe it follows. It's systematic. It's scientific. We set up studies. We have criteria for those studies of people living in groups. So it's not like psychology, which is the study of the individual human mind and individual human behavior. This is people living in groups, the systematic study of people living in groups. Terms in this lesson, we've talked about sociology briefly there. You're also going to come to grips with the term demographics. It's defined right below where this video is posted, as is social facts. You're going to get to do your own simple sociological experiment in which you form a hypothesis, something that you think might be true. You gather a sample of people to study, and then you come to a conclusion. I want to spend more time, though, talking about these last two terms, majority and ethnocentrism. Majority, simply defined, just means one more than half. So if you walked into a room and you saw that there were 78 cats and 22 dogs, you'd say most of the animals in this room are cats. They're not dogs. Likewise, if there were 100 U.S. senators, and there are, and 75 of them were men, and 25 were women, you'd say the majority were men. Matter of fact, you could say that if it were 51 men and 49 women, majority, one more than half. The final term is ethnocentrism, and let's look at that word a little bit. Ethno might seem like ethnicity, ethnic, exactly. It's a particular group of people, a culture, right? Centrism looks like center, central, yes. So ethnocentrism is the belief that my culture, my group, my race, my whatever, is at the center of things. We're the most important. We're central. We're primary. And it's really a mistake to be ethnocentrist. We need to understand that we are one of many, and that different groups and different people all have different things to lend, different contributions to make. And too often, and I'll say, especially it seems here in the U.S., we tend to think of the U.S. as the center of the world. It's the best. And don't get me wrong, I love my country. It's a great place. But in this class and in life generally, we need to be open to the idea that we're one of many, and that we all contribute to make this world the truly wonderful place that it is. So let's take a look at that world. I know this looks busy. Let's pretend the world is just 100 people. There are only 100 people living in the world. Because if we talk about the world as having between 7 and 8 billion people, those numbers are crazy. That's hard to get your hand around or your head around. So let's just think of the world as 100 people. What do we know about those people? Let's start at the top. We know that 50 are female, 50 are male. We can't say the majority are male or the majority are female. It's split even. Going clockwise, let's look at age. 26 are aged 0 birth to 14. But 66 are aged 15 to 64. So we could say the majority of people living in the world, or a typical person living in the world, is between 15 and 64 years of age, right? 8 of them would be age 65 and over, aged. What do we know about religion? Well, 33 of those 100 people in the village would be Christian. 33. That means that 67 of them are non-Christian. Now, you're going to see in a minute that the majority of Americans are Christian. But when we look at the world, a global scale, by boiling it down to these 100 people, they're non-Christian. The majority of people are non-Christian. How about literacy? 83 people can read and write. That's what literacy means, to be literate. 83 can read and write, 17 cannot. In terms of education, 7 people, 7 have a college degree. 93 do not. Internet, 30 can access the internet. 70 cannot. Think about that in comparison to the United States and the people you know. We can all access the internet. We could go to the library if we don't have Wi-Fi in our house or a computer. Or we could go to school. We can access the internet. Many people in the world cannot. 30 or 70 cannot. In terms of phones, I can't believe phones have made it onto the list. 75 people have cell phones, 25 do not. Water, 87 have safe water to drink and bathe in. 13 do not. That's a real crime. 13 may seem like a low number, but think of how essential water is to life. Poverty, 48 people in our village of 100, almost half, live on less than $2 US a day. $2 US a day. In terms of nutrition, 21 are overweight. 63 are fine, adequate. 15 are undernourished. 1 is starving. So 15 and 1, 16 people are undernourished or starving. Almost half live on less than $2 a day. And there are 13 people who don't have drinking water. That tells you something about the world. In terms of housing, 77 of our 100 people do have a place to shelter. It doesn't necessarily mean a house like this one or yours. It may be a tent, a hut. It's some sort of shelter to get out of the elements. Let's look at language. A lot of languages listed there. 12 people will speak Chinese. 12 in our village. Only 5 will speak English. That means more than 2 times, there are 2 times the number of Chinese speakers, more than 2 times the number of Chinese speakers than there are English speakers in our village of 100. In terms of where people live, 51 would live in an urban area like a city or a suburb, and 49 would live in a rural area, the countryside or the farm. And what continent do these people live on? 60 of them live on the continent of Asia. The majority of people live in Asia. The majority of people live in an urban area. The majority of people have a shelter. You see? 5 people would live in North America, where we are now. Canada, the United States, and Mexico. So 12 times as many people live in Asia than live in North America. 15 would live in Africa. That's 3 times more than live in North America. And 11, Europe. 9, South America. So that's a picture and a short explanation of the world we share with those 7 to 8 billion people. And in today's assignment, you're going to just draw some conclusions. Tell me what you've learned about the world from these facts. You're not going to tell me, well, in my world, we all play video games and we love sports. I want you to talk about the world as a whole. But before we do that, let's drill down a little bit and look at the United States. How did I do that? There we go. If we said there were only 100 people living in the United States, what would that look like? 100 people, not the hundreds of millions. Let's just take those hundreds of millions, boil it down to 100, and draw some conclusions. There are 100 people in the United States. 51 of them are female, and 49 are male. Now, we saw in the world it was split pretty even. Here in the United States, it's a slight advantage for the women. And being a man, that's all I'm going to say about that. Ages 63 between 18 and 65. That was kind of like the rest of the world, right? 23 under 18. Okay. 14 over 65. So I think we have more older people in the United States than maybe the world does generally, if I remember those numbers right. In terms of race and ethnicity, 62 would be white, 17 would be Hispanic or Latino, 13 would be black, and I don't use the term African American here because this would include black people from places other than Africa, the Caribbean islands, for example. 5 would be Asian, 2 would be multiracial, 1 would be a Native American. Languages spoken at home, 80 would speak English, 13 would speak Spanish, 1 would speak Chinese, 1 French, and 5 would speak one of the 300 other languages spoken here in the United States. In terms of religion, now we said the world is primarily non-Christian, wasn't it? Like 33 of the people in our world village would be Christian. Well, here in the United States, 71 would be, while 2 would be Jewish, 1 Muslim, 1 Buddhist, 1 Hindu, 4 agnostic, 3 atheists, and 16 just saying nothing, none. Agnostic and atheists are different. Agnostics are unsure about the existence of a supreme being. Atheists are just don't believe there is one. In terms of immigrants, 16 people in our village are themselves immigrants to the United States. 8 of them would be children of immigrants, and 76 are at least third-generation Americans, meaning that their parents were born here, their grandparents were born here, and perhaps generations beyond that. What else do we know about the 100 people in our village? 92 have a cell phone. So if I remember correctly, cell phones seem to be a little bit more prevalent in the United States than they do in the world as a whole. 86 have a high school diploma. 14 do not. 80 live in urban or city, suburban areas, while 20 live in rural farms and countryside. So I think the United States tends to be more urban than the rest of the world as a whole. 29 of our 100 have a 4-year college degree. I think that was very different when we talked about the world as a whole, the number of people who had a college degree. And finally, 56 of us in our village have pets. I don't know where mine is right now. And I don't know why I keep doing that. 44 people don't have pets, and I don't know what's wrong with them. Our final slide here, if you want to learn more about this, or if I went too fast, or it was too confusing, go ahead and search, what if the world were 100 people? Or what if the United States were 100 people? You'll see all kinds of videos and articles about it. I thought some of them went too fast, but they're certainly slicker than what I'm putting together here for you now. So, go ahead and check that out. A couple of things to keep in mind. Number one, the information is always going to be slightly different depending on when it was done and who did it. And sometimes information is put out there to influence you in one way or another about one thing or another. So everything with a grain of salt. I think that's it. I really look forward to working with you all. Truly, this is what I do. I enjoy it. I hope you do, and I hope you know or feel that you can come to me with any questions or concerns that you have at any time. Thanks. I'll see you again.